Well, a series of attacks in the West Rand have once again thrust into the spotlight concerns around gender-based violence, especially as the country marks Women's Day today. In the latest incident, 8 women were gang-raped allegedly by illegal miners in Krugersdorp last month. Gender-based violence activists have lashed out at the country's justice system, saying that they've lost faith in police. Let's bring in Connie Ramathibela, who is the acting director in the Gauteng province for the Ikhaya Lethemba Victim Empowerment Center. She joins us via our video link this morning. Connie, it's great to talk to you, but always difficult on Women's Day in particular, isn't it, to have this kind of conversation, because every year this is what we talk about on Women's Day. This year, as we gauge how far we've come, Connie, what would be your answer to that?
Good morning, Michelle. Good morning to your viewers, and thank you for having us to your program. Indeed, it's a very, very somber moment for the country after the matter that we have touched on, which is not an isolated matter. There is a series of gender-based violence matters that don't reach social media or printed media or even television. So it's very difficult for one to say we celebrate, what has happened with the women who marched in this area, in this era, because of the pain that we are seeing, that the violence that is geared towards the vulnerable groups in our society, especially women and children. So it's very difficult to say today, Happy Women's Day. It's not a happy moment at all.
Yeah, certainly. The latest incident that I touched on in the introduction, the gang rape of those 8 young women in Krugersdorp, it's now opened the door on what perhaps for some will be a new aspect to the gender-based violence problem in our country. The issue of zama-zamas and the threat that poses not only to communities, but what those communities tell us, the threat that poses to women and children as well.
Yes, this is it's not actually a new crime. The Zama-Zamas has been there and have been committing such crimes. I think the response is quite slowly, because now the spotlights are taken by the crime of Zama-Zamas digging gold, but the real issue here is that they are attacking the vulnerable groups, they are attacking the women, they are attacking the children, they are committing crimes in our communities, which makes our communities not a safe place to be at all. So I think something very drastic needs to happen with the Zama-Zamas, as we hear on the news that most of these people are people that are illegal in the country, that are undocumented, and it's very difficult to trace or to track, to have a track record of people who are not documented in terms of linking them to crimes. Speaking to the 8, we're still waiting for them to be linked to the crime. So it's a painful wait for the victims who have suffered or who are suffering right now, and for the country as a whole. As we are seeing now, this thing is starting even further violence in our communities, in trying to fight the crimes against and protect the women and children, so that we can have a safe space for women to live in our communities.
The issue that you've just brought up now, Connie, insofar as the documenting of people, ensuring that people's documents are up to date, and what an important role that plays in fighting crime in general. If we take a look at the first quarter figures for Gauteng alone, 476 cases of gender-based violence reported in the first quarter of 2021-2022. Only 31 of those perpetrators convicted. If we think about the fight against gender-based violence and the risk, the level of risk to women and children, what role does ensuring more convictions play in that scheme?
Already if we can map out the interventions that are in the country or in the province, you will see that there is almost sufficient resources. The problem is that the resources are not equally distributed to different corridors in the province. For example, the Department of Community Safety that I'm representing now, we have made strides, to curb the scourge of gender-based violence, having 2 shelters that we can accommodate women that are in crisis, that are survivors or victims of gender-based violence.
This is in Gauteng, right?
This is in Gauteng, yes. And we also have established now the community-based structures in partnership with civil society community members, which is called the Green Doors, where community members volunteer and to use their private spaces to accommodate these women who are in crisis until the help can come. Women who are living far from police stations, then a community member or a safety ambassador, we call them safety ambassador, can then accommodate these women. We also established a gender-based violence brigaders.
Connie, before you move on, I just want to focus a bit more on the Green Door initiative that you've just mentioned and those 2 shelters. Just to be clear, the Green Door initiative is for a very short period of time, right? That's a period of time not exceeding 4 hours, as far as I understand it. Just a safe place for victims to go until official help in the form of police can get there.
Yes, the Green Door actually it's a one of the rapid responses that we are implementing. And the woman can stay for up to 6 hours until the police or the professional help come and assist the woman or link the woman to psychosocial support intervention that the woman might need. So the Green Doors, they receive the victims and they contain them and then call the police, call for further assistance. Yes.
And then, of course, the 2 shelters. I mean, the shelters in Braamfontein and Everton combined, they have capacity of only 120. So it's a long way off from what we need in the province to respond to the scourge of gender-based violence.
Yeah, actually, the 2 are by community safety. However, we do have 23 others in the whole province that comprises of NGOs as well in all the corridors of the center. We've got 2 that are male shelters as well, because we understand that males also do suffer abuse, although the statistics are very little. But then the 2 that we are having, the one, especially the one in Braamfontein, is the biggest shelter in Gauteng that we have. And I think it's the longest as well, that can keep the women for up to 6 months and is functioning for 24 hours, 7 days a week, free, professional, secure service for women.
Yeah.
And their dependent children.
Yeah. I mean, the Green Door initiative, Connie, sounds, it's obviously very important and sounds good on paper. The critics of the initiative, or rather critics of our response as a country in general to gender-based violence, will say it's not enough, it's not done what it was intended to do, because the numbers have not gone down insofar as GBV cases is concerned.
Yeah, it's really troubling that the numbers are not going down, considering the efforts that the government is putting to curb this scourge. I think we need more to pull in more resources and human resources like males as well. I think most of these initiatives or maybe the community mobilization when we do preventative work, I think just for the lack of better word, like we're preaching to the already converted.
Absolutely.
So that's why we initiated the gender-based brigaders to go house to house, door to door, to make sure that we reach even people that cannot come to these gatherings, to these awarenesses that we always do, 365 days of no violence against women and children, just to reach out and educate families and communities. We really need families on board as well, because families, that is where we get the victims, that is where we get the perpetrators as well. But you'll find that most of the time, families support the perpetrators, and in that way it supports perpetuation of this crime against the vulnerable groups in our communities, because for many reasons they are our breadwinners. Still the issues of patriarchy, other issues. We normally say to women when we do our awarenesses that they should not hide the perpetrators. They should not. The gender-based violence is not an issue of being negotiated. Sexual offenses, it's something that you cannot negotiate. It's not a family matter. It's something that is a law that against the law that needs to be reported. So it's very important that the families are on board, and they also support. They don't blame the victims for what has happened to them, but they support and embrace these victims, because what is happening, victims are getting empowered, or maybe yes, from shelters. Maybe they are admitted in shelters, but when they go back to their communities, there is this fear of the unknown, whether they will be accepted back in their communities, and they are shamed as victims. Most of the time, you'll find that even when you are in court supporting this victims, you find that the perpetrator has more support than the victims, because the victims is blamed for whatever violation has happened to her.
Yeah. Connie, as you say, so many different aspects, so many different legs to the story, the gruesome story of gender-based violence in our country. Let me thank you for your time. Connie Ramathibela is the Acting Director of Ikhaya Lethemba Victim Empowerment.